All right. We are live. I am here with Mai, and I'm gonna let her introduce herself in just a moment, but just a reminder to everybody as you guys filter in here, this is the Candidate of Our Dreams series. We're talking to all the best progressive, pro-democracy candidates that we can find across this here United States, because we are in a five-alarm fire in DC, and we need to fix it right now. Along those lines, a couple of points of note before we get started. Like I know at the beginning of every single episode of this series, one, purity politics has no place in our work here. We are going to be talking about nuance. We're going to be talking about complexity. We're going to be talking about how policy points can be attacked from multiple angles, and that is good and right. And we want a Congress of diverse thinkers. That doesn't mean diverse as in like I think authoritarianism is great and I think democracy is great. It means diverse and like we all agree what we're trying, how we're trying to, or the type of government we want. It's just how we get there can sometimes look very different. And it's in those diverse perspectives that we have great policy. Number two is this is not just for your entertainment. I am sure Maya and I will be fantastically entertaining. I'm sure you will have a great time. And we are here to do homework. So at the end of this episode, we'll be giving you assignments for how to support the candidates of your dreams, whether it's Maya, whether it's somebody else. But you cannot just sit back and be like, oh my God, I loved her. She was so great. And think that that somehow has like done something. It hasn't. Until you donate, volunteer, or whatever, nothing has happened yet. But of course, we want to give you full disclosure about who this person is and what they are about before you support them or encourage others to do so. So, out of California 7, Mai, why don't you introduce yourself to the people who are listening now and will be listening later?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It is such an honor. Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for having me on and just so grateful to be part of your series. So thank you so much. And hi to everybody who's jumping on. I see the numbers are going up. Just thank you again. I'm grateful to be, on this Substack podcast. So, yes, my name is Mai Vang, and I am currently a Sacramento City Council member. I represent South Sacramento, some of the most disadvantaged neighborhoods in the city of Sacramento. I'm a candidate running for Congressional District 7. I was born and raised right here in South Sacramento. I am the daughter of Hmong refugees. I'm the oldest of 16 children in my family. I have worked in local government and nonprofit. I've been a community organizer doing over 2 decades of community organizing work, policy and advocacy work. And I know what it takes to actually mobilize people on the ground to get things done. What I've learned over my years as a community organizer, as working in a nonprofit, working in local government, is that there is huge influence of corporations in terms of how they influence policy. And I know that when I was a community organizer, what brought me into local elections was that I recognized really quickly that so many policies were created for us, but never by us, by folks that actually understood what was going on the ground. Yeah, I am running for Congress because this fight is incredibly personal for me. I am running against an entrenched incumbent who's also a Democrat, who's been in this office for about 20 years. And she took the seat when her husband passed away. So, in combination, the Matsui family have been in the seat for about 47 years, almost half a century. Um, and I am taking on the entrenched incumbent, but the establishment, the local establishment, and those that have been in office for a really, really long time. Just to let you all know, the primary is June 2nd, and we have less than 92 days left to go. Just a little bit about the campaign in particular, because we're in California, and so it's actually a nonpartisan. So it's top two vote getters move on to the general election. And some of y'all probably have been following California politics. We also passed Prop 50 as well. So want to provide that context, which I supported Prop 50 because, Trump was doing the thing in Texas and we needed every tool in our toolbox to fight back. And so we, passed Prop 50 to gain some more seats. And that actually changed the map. It had turned our district CD7 more blue to purple. And so after Prop 50, this congressional district that I will represent includes actually new areas where the incumbent has never represented. So it actually provides a new electorate for us to deploy our strong field games because she won't have name recognition in those areas. So that's a little bit about just the area. It includes Sacramento, Elk Grove, El Dorado, Bolton, Lodi. It has some urban, rural areas. Sacramento is known as the city of trees. It's also known as the farm to fork capital. We're surrounded by farms, agriculture powerhouse. We also are at the confluence of two rivers as well. But at the same time, there are many parts of our region, me in particular, because I represent South Sacramento. Yes, we're considered the city of trees, but we lack tree canopy in specific underserved communities where there's heat island. We're the farm to fork capital in California, but I represent areas that are food insecure. And that's the reason why I'm in this race, because I think it's really important that we have elected leaders in the halls of Congress that understands the day-to-day struggles of our working families. And Kate, if we were having this conversation a year ago on March 2nd and you told me I was running for Congress, I would not believe you. The decision to run came from conversations with family and loved ones, with community advocates on the ground, and after I spoke to the Congresswoman and recognized that she did not have an answer on immigration. And while I have deep respect for her and the service that she's provided for this region, it's really important that we got somebody that understands what is happening. And I don't have the luxury of waiting on the sidelines. I mean, I grew up here. I see so many of our families struggling. I'm a newlywed too, married to a son of Mexican immigrants. And we got families and loved ones that are afraid if they're going to be separated because of ICE. Folks are struggling to make the next mortgage and rent. And we just don't have that luxury to wait on the sidelines. So I'm in this race and I want to let the voters know that they have another option. After 20 years, they have another choice on the ballot and it's good for democracy.
Amazing. I love how you touched on, everyone is thinking of Prop 50 as being a thing to get more Democratic seats overall. But as you pointed out, it's also a chance to shake up the establishment of even the blue districts, right? Like
Yes,
that.
yes.
So
Yeah, because when I took a position on Prop 50, I had supporters who said to me, why would you support a proposition that is actually to your disadvantage? It will make the district more purple." And I said to them, one, well, we got to use every tool in the toolbox to fight Trump. Like, I'm a fighter. I'm not going to wait on the sidelines. Secondly, it doesn't really matter if it's for me, if it's more purple than blue, because if you are really talking about the issues, while we may not agree on strategies on how to get there, I really believe that folks who are Republican, no matter your political identity, care about the same issues. And so I know that the incumbent isn't going to go into those purple towns, those red towns to have town halls, to have those conversations, but I'm willing to do that as a community organizer and meet people where they're at. So if anything, it's actually an advantage to us because one, in those areas, she has never represented it, which means she doesn't have name recognition. So it's an advantage for us in terms of field game because we don't have the money, but we have the people power. And so 93 days left until the campaign, until June 2nd. But I feel confident, even with Prop 50, even though it is now more purple than blue, that we're better positioned still to win the race.
amazing. All right. So tell me, you've alluded to it a little bit, but I would love to hear more about your conversation with the congresswoman that made you go like, I need to run now. Because this is not a glamorous for anyone who thinks that this is like some kind of glamorous gig and like, oh my gosh, it's so great. Running for office sucks. It sucks. There's nothing there's nothing cushy about it. It is a ton of work. And especially if you don't have the establishment money, if you don't have the convention behind you, if you don't have
Mhm.
that like firepower or whatever, you are grinding every day. Are you currently on the Sacramento City Council
I
or
am. I am on the Sacramento City Council full time, so it's like
no?
it's like team no sleep. It is team no sleep. It's
Right.
literally team no sleep. It's a grind. But yeah, no, Kate, I'll tell you the story that actually led me to this moment. So, last summer, like I said to you, we are having this conversation a year ago on March 2nd, 2005. I wouldn't believe that I would be running for Congress. So, last summer, I had not yet decided if I should run. And for the first 5 months under the Trump administration, of last year, our Latino neighbors were being detained at the Federal Mosque building, uh, where they were doing the routine check-ins with ICE, and I had received multiple phone calls about Hmong refugees being kidnapped by ICE in Sacramento. And there was one call in particular that broke my heart. It was a Hmong father who was watering his front yard in front of his kids when a black SUV pulled up and took him in front of his family. And I wanted to share this with the congresswoman to see what we could do in actual partnership. And I'm a city council member, right? And I knew that, like, I've heard from constituents that it was hard to get a meeting with her, but I was a council member reaching out to her as an elected to an elected, you know? And, we did like 5 to 6 email attempts between May and June, and her office pretty much, did not schedule a meeting with me. And then finally, at the end of August, I was able to secure a meeting with her because I texted her, and I don't text just because I have a lot of respect for her, and I wouldn't just randomly text her. And I said, "Hey, Congresswoman, I hate to get you involved with the calendaring, but I've been trying to get on your schedule." And then she said, "We'll put something on the calendar." So let me share with you a little bit about how that meeting went down. And it has a lot to do with why I'm here today. When I held that meeting with her, it was like a 30-minute meeting, 10 o'clock in the morning. I walked in her office with the intention to inform her about what was going on in the community because I was working with like mutual aid efforts, community-based organization around Know Your Rights, about all the stuff that was going on in our neighborhoods. And during that meeting, I thanked her for her service. And I shared with her the work that we've been doing on the ground to protect immigrants and refugees, again, like from mutual aid efforts to Know Your Rights workshop to a statewide initiative that we're pushing to help pardon refugees. And during that meeting, I asked her, what is your position on immigration? And she then turned to her staff and said, what is our position on immigration? And then her staff asked me, have I spoken to the state senator? Have I spoken to the state assembly member? Which I answered yes. But then I said, immigration is a federal issue. And in that moment was when I realized that, we didn't have the leadership we needed to protect our families. And that was a moment that I decided that I was going to do this. I had friends and family and loved ones and, community folks on the ground have encouraged me to consider it. But I was like, nah, like I'm API. She's an API woman who I have deep respect for. Like my mom has a photo of the Matsui family in her office. I've always voted for her every year. I really want an opportunity to speak with her. And really at that meeting, my palms were sweaty and I was like debating in my head, like, are you gonna do this? Are you not gonna do this? If you do this, you better tell her now because you might not get a chance to talk to her again. And at the end of that meeting, I found the courage to tell her I was running. And at the end, it was like 10:28, 2 minutes left. And one of her staff was like, Councilmember Vang, your time is up. It's time for you to go. And I was like, okay. I grabbed my backpack, I put it on, and I said, Congresswoman, I have one last thing. And she's like, yes. I said, I'm considering running for Congress. And she said, you're running against me? And then I said to her, well, I can't really talk about the campaign because we're in the federal building. I did request to have this meeting, outside of the federal building to have coffee with you, but your team was not able to accommodate. I will move my calendar around. You let me know when you can meet, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And then I shook her hand, and then I walked out her office, and I have not yet received a phone call or an email. That's pretty much how it went down.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and I know, and it was, I would say, like, yeah, like, my palms was definitely sweaty because it is the congresswoman who I have deep gratitude and respect for, and having to find the courage to tell her in that moment at the last 2 minutes of my meeting to say, "Hey, I'm considering." And it wasn't even for sure yet. It was just like, "I'm considering," because, um, I wasn't sure yet, but I wanted an opportunity to speak with her, and so that is what went down.
That
So,
is
yeah.
first of all, that takes some balls. Like, I'm in awe that you were able to look at your elected and say, "Yeah, so after this conversation, like, I'm gonna be running."
Yeah, I
It's
just Kate, and I was hoping for something, like,
right.
I think I went in there thinking, "Okay, maybe, like,
There's
she'll
a
say
plan.
something." Like, yeah, there's a plan because I don't wanna like, I'm like, "I've never like, this is crazy if I ever ran, like, I wouldn't take corporate PAC money, like, how are we gonna run against a millionaire married to a billionaire? Like, there's no way," you know? And then, like, in that moment, like, I took off my city council hat, and it was, like, there as a constituent,
Right.
thinking to myself, like, "Do I want this type of representative fighting for me in the halls of Congress?"
Right.
And, like, the answer is no, you know? I'm like, we can't do this anymore, especially under this authoritarian administration, like, who's not abiding by any rules, and we gotta know what's going on the ground, have that temperature check, right? And that was what that was the deciding moment for me.
Yeah. I truly, I'm in awe and like, congratulations on being able to, like, I don't know if I could have done that, to be honest. Like, and I consider myself pretty bold. I yelled at my senator, who I don't hate, but, like, I yelled at him
Mhm.
at town hall last year,
Oh,
in front
wow.
of everyone, and, but I don't think I could have like, if I was planning to run against him, I don't think I could have told him, like, "By the way, I'm running against you." Um, so I do think that, when it comes to established politicians, if they can't handle the idea that their constituents would want something different and would therefore run, if they can't I would have more respect for an elected who's like, "Well, obviously I wanna win the race, but I understand your desire," and, like, you know what I mean? Like, I've talked to so many progressives and the candidates of our dreams that I've been talking to, so many of them talk about building the bench, right?
Mhm.
That was an opportunity for her to be like, "Let's talk about why you wanna do that.
I
Let's
know.
talk about
Mhm.
what that could look like. Maybe we could do something cooperatively." 'Cause a Congress
Mhm.
seat is only 2 years at a time, so, like,
Mhm.
if it were me, even if she didn't this is bad, but even if she didn't mean it, it could have been an opportunity to be like, "Can we talk about 2028?" Like,
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
desire, I think that at this point, with everything that's on fire, I need to be in the seat 2 more years, but, like, can we talk about the bench or whatever?
Mhm.
No, no, it's because it's not about that, and that sucks, like, because, like you said, we're looking for a plan, and part of having a plan as a party is having a bench. That's
Yep.
how we don't become stagnant, and I say "we," I'm an independent, I'm not even a Democrat, but, like, as
Mhm.
I consider myself as part of the coalition, but
Mhm.
we're all looking for a plan. So anyway, I could go on and on
Yeah,
and on.
so but Kate, it's like it is the Sacramento local politics is that it's kind of the unspoken rule. 'Cause I've been in conversation with local electeds, like, you don't do what my Vang just did. Because there's this thing where you wait your turn in our local kind of politics,
Mhm.
and my thing is I wasn't even waiting my turn because I wasn't even thinking about running for Congress, that's the
Right.
part, right? And so it's no secret when, we announced our campaign that the 3 mayors of the largest cities within Congressional District 7 threw their support behind, the incumbent, right? I understand there's those deep relationship there, but I'm the progressive on the city council. I'm not a stranger to taking on like the establishment.
Mhm.
And I also know that change is hard, right? When you've had something for almost 47 years, right? Change is hard. But, if seniority was going to save us, we wouldn't be here. I know, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Okay, we have reached the part of the interview where we go through the checklist of the candidates of our dreams. I'll reiterate that this is not about looking for the correct answer. I send these points to the candidates, everyone who's listening, I send them to them ahead of time. They know there's no gotchas, there's no like, "Ah, you do this here." And so if they hated them, they probably wouldn't opt to do this interview in the first place. But again, there can be different ways to approach everything, and everyone coming from their diverse constituencies, like, can have different opinions. Like, I talked to a super progressive candidate who was like, "Yeah, I don't like stock buybacks, but one thing we gotta consider is that right now, our wealth as individuals, like our retirements or whatever, are tied up in the markets. So how do we
mhm,
double that?" And I was like, "What a great thing to talk about." Like, because you can't just turn something off and just
mhm,
ignore the consequences, right? Because then people get
mhm,
mad.
mhm,
So anyway,
mhm,
with all that being said, my point 1,
mhm. 'Kay.
according to me, some girl on the internet, the candidate of our dreams takes $0 in corporate campaign money. And I say corporate money on purpose because there are different types of PACs, people. We need to educate
Mhm,
ourselves better on that. But
mhm.
corporate PACs particularly, where do you stand?
I don't take any corporate PAC money. So that is my position. I mean, these corporations are literally almost like writing our policies or telling pretty much kind of hinting how you should be voting, right? And I don't take money from any corporate PAC, which also makes things a little bit harder in terms of this campaign. My incumbent actually takes money from military contractors that are making money from war. For-profit health insurance companies like United United Healthcare, and also companies who profit from ICE, right? So I don't take any corporate PAC money, and I think that's really important. And a big part of that is because as electeds, even at the local level or in Congress or the state level, is that, our job is to center people and we have to create policies that help improve the social conditions of humanity. Most of the time, these corporations are just trying to squeeze the most out of us to make profit, right? And that isn't their agenda, is to really improve the social conditions of humanity. And so, if we want democracy to work, we need to do some of the things that you listed in your, I think it was like 7 or 9 items. So, yeah, so the corporate PAC money is, yeah, I don't take any corporate PAC.
Amazing. All right, number 2, the candidate of our dreams term limits themselves and advances term limit legislation. I'm pretty sure after our conversation, I know where you stand on this, but anything else to reiterate on this?
Yeah, I support this as well. A Congress seat isn't entitled to anyone; it belongs to the people, and I support term limits. Absolutely. So.
Amazing. Do you have any ideas, specific ideas of how many terms, like number of years or
Yeah, in California, we do have term limits on the Senate and Assembly side, about 12 years. That we feel that it's maybe long, enough leeway, runway to actually learn to hit the ground running and to be able to deliver some outcomes for your district. And so, yeah, I think anywhere from 8 to 12 years is solid.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've heard about the 8 to 12 years, and I couldn't agree more. I heard, one candidate I was talking to put it just absolutely beautifully of saying, you have enough time to complete a body of work in that time, and
Mhm.
then you need to be done, and talking about the bench, like we were talking about earlier, and then you need to move someone else in, and that doesn't mean, like, you don't have to disappear from the
Yeah.
scene just because you're not in the seat. Like, again, part of having the bench is that you can step back, you can coach, right? Like, how great would it be to have incumbents who are like, this is the person that I'm going to be mentoring into this role.
Yep.
And when I step back, the institutional knowledge will not just disappear into the ether. I will be supportive and what is, in their freshman, whatever. And it would just be so nice. Work like
Yeah, Kate, and I mean, I think how I govern at the local level is how I will govern in the halls of Congress. When I was on school board before I ran for city council, I made sure that we had someone ready to go because we did not do all this work on school board to be like deuces, right? We want to make sure that we were building on the work. Same thing for city council. Like when I made the decision to actually run for Congress, I had a conversation with 3 folks who are in the queue, who are ready to go. They're all amazing progressive candidates, and they're like all supporting our congressional race and they're ready to go, right? But we have a palette of strong candidates that will serve South Sacramento. And so that's really important to me, is making sure we build that pipeline. It's so key. So,
dreamy, dreamy. I
yeah.
love to hear it. All right. Number 3, the candidate of our dreams reasserts their power over the Supreme Court. By there, I obviously mean Congress, but like,
Yes, 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 yes. So, I said, I mean, all of these are like, yes, yes, I want to like snap.
I know.
But for this one in particular, because I do get well, Maya, when you go to Congress, it's going to be gridlock and you don't have a lot of power or whatnot. But actually, I do believe that Congress have a lot of power because they represent the people, right? It is the branch that represents us, and
I'm
it is
hearing.
where yeah, and it's where we can actually change hearts and minds to leverage to make our demands, right? And it is also a position where you can be effective if you're able to help your constituent understand like the issue and how are we going to problem solve and how are we going to advocate, which is why I I was sharing with you, like, if there was a political content creator of your dreams, I would say it's you, K for the people, because I love, like, how you started about, like, basically urging people to call their congressional reps
Mhm.
and share their lived experience and tell them how you should vote, like, because these representatives, they represent the people, right? And in some ways, that is our job, is to be that good steward of community, to hear, to listen, and to problem solve. And the other piece is that, Congress actually does hold the purse. Like, they actually fund, right, everything else. And so I think that, so yes, we should reassert our power over the Supreme Court. So,
Amazing. I love that. I think you were talking about establishment Democrats earlier, and one of their biggest Achilles heels, I think, is the institutionalist mindset. A lot of establishment Dems are big fans of the Supreme Court, and we can't touch it. You can't touch it. And I'm like, there are so many places in the Constitution Not even in the Bill of Rights, in in the bodies, the articles of the Constitution that specifically tell Congress what to do about the Supreme Court. And it's really frustrating to me when I get elected taking that get out of jail free card basically of like, "Oh, we can't touch it." I'm like, "Actually, you were told to touch by the framers. So, like, do your job." Okay, number 4 and 5, I always pair together. The candidate
Mhm.
of our dreams raises wages and reinstates corporate tax marginalization. I put that in the same line for a reason. And then on number 5, increases tax marginalization for high net worth individuals. Tell me about your
Yeah.
tax policy.
I would say yes to all of that. I think, on the because the the 4th one you had was raising wages,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Reinstating, yeah. 1, I think we absolutely have to raise the federal minimum wage. I think that's really important, more like livable wage, and we should make sure that we implement a steep marginal corporate tax,
Yeah.
especially for, annual corporate revenues exceeding the billions, right? I think that's really, really key. In terms of what was the other one?
Increasing tax marginalization for high net worth individuals. So for people who pass through their corporate in
Oh, like their LLC. So basically, like closing loopholes that allow wealthy people to pretty much shield themselves.
yes.
Yeah, I support that. Yeah, like that shouldn't be happening. Period.
You
So
can
yeah,
pay it on the LLC side or you can pay it on the
I'm
individual
like,
side.
why? Like,
I
okay,
don't
so
really
this is
care, but you
how
gotta
you
pay
do it.
it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So the answer is yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Amazing. And the reason I disclose this to people as often as possible, the reason I put raises wages and reinstate corporate tax marginalization in the same line is
Mhm.
because part of the theory of that is if you raise corporate taxes, they're going to try and lower their tax liability. That's what
Mhm.
it does with anyone,
Mhm.
and you expect them to do that. When you raise
Mhm.
wages at the same time, you're kind of telling them how they're going to do it because they can write
Right.
off payroll expenses. So
Yep.
as making it a policy is basically saying, like, "I know you're trying to do legal tax evasion. That's fine. This is the
Mhm.
way you're gonna do
Mhm.
it, is you're gonna raise people's wages."
Great.
Which is how we used to do it back before Reagan. Alright.
Yep.
Number
Yep.
6, the candidate of our dreams bans stock buybacks or the practice of corporations buying back their own stock to inflate the share price, which, again, before Reagan, used to be illegal. So how do you feel about this is a kind of a wonky issue and there's lots of opinions. So how do you feel about the stock buyback?
I mean, I think we should, prohibit any corporation from receiving federal contracts and grants and tax credits, and from conducting stock buybacks. That's what I believe. That's my position on it, just overall. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's my favorite one. I would get rid of the stock buyback entirely. I'd be like, "We're done, don't do it." But I am
Mhm.
fine with having a middle of the road where it's like, you can do it as long as you're not getting federal money in the middle of doing it. Like, I don't wanna see
Uh-huh.
you getting laid off, using a federal contract, and then buying back your own stock. Like, that's not what
Yep.
the money is for. So, please stop. Okay. Number 7, this is my personal favorite. Invest in a robust, nimble,
I
and
know
strategic
too.
administrative state.
Yes, mine too. I saw this one. I'm like, "Oh, this is one of yours." So, I think for me on this one in particular, I wanna talk about, like, strategic administrative state in terms of immigration,
Yes.
because it's something that I'm really passionate about, right? Like, wanting to establish a more accessible pathway for legal status for our TPS recipient, our dreamers, undocumented folks.
Yeah.
But that also means that, like, Congress, like, we gotta increase funding and staffing for federal agencies. We gotta, like,
Okay.
modernize our immigration and court and digital case systems, right? And we also have to, reduce our visa and our asylum processing backlogs, right? And so I'm a big supporter of this. I think it's of utmost importance, right? Like it is true. Like we do need increased funding for our citizenship and immigration services to speed up processing times. I say this as someone who's married to a son of immigrants. Like my suegra just got her documents after like many years, like 13, 14 years, and so it takes time. And so, yeah, I think we need to invest in this. This is stuff that makes government work for the people, right? So, yeah.
I love that. The immigration system in particular, I look at the big beautiful bill and the infusion of cash into ICE and CBP. I'm like, if you
Yep.
had taken half of that money, half, and put it
Mhm.
into immigration courts
Yep.
and made it an INS again instead of ICE,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep.
We could have cleared the backlog like, in
Yep.
we at this point in the administration and this, like, a year later, we could have had no more backlog of cases, could have, like And if there were any criminals to deport or jail or whatever, we could have dealt with that already. It all could have been done. But ins
Mhm.
but instead, here we
Yep,
are doing this
yep,
instead. So, yeah, I
yep,
could not agree more about the it's not it's clearly not a resource issue to that point, right? Like,
yep.
we have the money apparently.
Yeah, we have the money, we can do $50,000 bonuses for ICE agents, we absolutely have
Right.
the money. Yeah.
Which they're not even paying to their people, which I think is
Oh,
funny. Oh, yeah, no, it's come out that they're probably not actually getting them. The agents are getting, like, upset because they haven't been paid out, and I'm like, "Oh, well, anyway,
mm.
leopards eating faces and whatever." All right, number 8, the candidate of our dreams advances universal healthcare and education.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So let me talk a little bit about education, right? I support fully funded, our IDEA like act, right? I think that we're not funding it the ways that we need to, so that's really important. And then also, I'm someone with college student debt, right? I think we need to address that as well. And I represent an area that has a lot of Title One school, and I don't think our education is fully funded, and so I fully support that. On the healthcare piece, I support Medicare for all. I'm not saying we're going to have that overnight, right? It's a phase in process. I do support the short term of, extending subsidies because we got to make sure people are covered, and we know health insurance premiums are going to go up. But my critique on the ACA, even though I have family and loved one on the ACA, is that when you're paying those subsidies, you're still giving it to insurance companies, right? And so that's the reason that's the reason why I support Medicare for all. And so that is my position. Like I don't think these health insurance should be making profits out of the pain and suffering of our loved ones. And a critique that I often get when I'm doing house parties or town halls while I'm on the campaign trail is like, "My, how are you going to pay for this? Like Medicare for all is so expensive." And I will tell them we're already paying for it right now. Like we pay the most in healthcare coverage and insurance, but we have the worst health outcomes, right? And so I'm a big supporter of Medicare for all. So
Yeah, we're literally going to redirect the exact same, if not less money, to the care as opposed to dividends for profit insurers and providers. There we go. Problem solved. All right, like, agreed. Okay, last point on my list, and then we'll talk about your list. Number 9, the candidate of our dreams commits to multilateral, non-interventionist foreign policy, which is so apropos today, considering what we are currently messing around with in the Middle East. So, what
yeah,
is your stance on foreign policy?
my stance on foreign policy is that we got to do everything we can to seek diplomacy. Because what's going to happen is just more destruction. I say this as someone who's a daughter of refugees, and this is also tied to immigration too, because some people may talk about like the immigration crisis, and a lot of it has to do with U.S. imperialism and the ways in which we have destabilized other countries that cause for the mass migration. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that. And so for me, seeking diplomacy is really important. That's key, right? He is dragging us into an illegal war. There's money to be made off of wars as well, right? And we have to be able to have the courage to do that. And I know there's a lot of mixed emotions depending on your analytics on your social media. Right? I have conversation with loved ones about, well, there's a regime change that's happening right in Iran, and
Mm.
my answer to that is like, we need a regime change in the United States.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we have to let the people decide how they're going to self-govern. That's really important, And so that's my position is, centering humanity and diplomacy at all costs, and then using sanctions if we need to. But I think we need to be going into wars. And I have um, 15 younger siblings. I have two brothers in the military, right? In the Marines and the Air Force. And so this is something that we make hastily. Like it is people's life on the line, all lives. And we've already seen the casualty. And I've seen my people have seen the casualty of wars during the Vietnam War when the United States recruited the Hmong people to fight in the secret war of Laos by the CIA. The U.S. withdrew their troops because recognized that that was a war we should have not participated in. And then there was a complete genocide of our people. Over 30,000 plus of our people fled. My parents fled Laos, through the jungles, crossed the Mekong River, and then made it to Thailand to seek refuge, right? And so I understand the generational trauma of war and what that does. And so, yeah, I would be a big, voice and advocate to say no wars. I mean, we want healthcare, we want housing, we want food, right? This is what our constituents want. They don't want endless wars. So
Yeah. The whole Department of War branding, I'm like, "It's not
I
hitting." I don't know why they think it's hitting. It's not. It's like
yeah.
it feeds their base. I realize their rabid base is very excited about that, but everyone else is just like, "Nah, man, I'm good,
Mhm.
actually." Yeah, thank you for touching on the history of the Hmong people in the Vietnam conflict,
Mhm. Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's truly I don't get to talk to a lot of API people, and not all the time, but when I do, one thing that, is nice to be able to touch on is there's been a lot of silent genocide,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
of our people,
Yep,
um,
absolutely.
or silent oppression. And,
Mhm.
well, some of it is a cultural thing. I'm half
Mhm.
Japanese, and,
Mhm.
there was a lot of, when we're talking about, like, internment,
Yeah.
a lot of, like, stiff upper lip, right? You just gotta get through, you gotta prove that you can get through it and that if you endure, you're proving them wrong that way, which I don't disagree with necessarily.
Mhm.
I don't think that that was, like, a wrong approach, and it was survival.
Yeah. G and
But
Kate go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, but I think what it has done historically for look back is people don't realize how many people have been unjustly imprisoned, slaughtered, left to die, whatever, in Far East and Southeast, cultures for the US, for the sake of the US's policies, racism, whatever, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to be part of that legacy as you were just saying.
Yeah, and okay, since we're talking about Asian American, like, when you think about even immigration, I mean, the first act in this country was the 1882 exclusion the Chinese Exclusion Act,
And
right?
yes!
Where basically you were barred because of who you were, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of, like, when we say no history, no self, like, know your history, know yourself, it's because Asian Americans in this country have dealt with that. The first law that banned a whole entire group of population based on their race and their ethnicity was our Chinese, right? Internment camp, the Japanese Americans, right? The Hmong people being recruited by the United States, the CIA war. Like, we have our history is the American history, and oftentimes that's not taught in history books. And how you just shared how our parents didn't, share kind of like we're taught not to talk about it. My story is like I actually didn't know about my own history. Like, growing up in South Sacramento, my parents never talked about it. It wasn't until I went to college and I read one line about the Hmong people in my sociology class that I was like, "What? We were recruited by the United States?
Yeah, why does no
How
one
come, how come my parents never told me?" And I think a big part of it. So after I read that in my sociology class, I went home that night to write a paper. I called my dad, and I'm translating it from English, Hmong to English. I was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm doing a paper on the Hmong people. I want to interview you. Did you know we were involved in the Vietnam War?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "How come you never told me about it?" And he was like, "Well, because you never asked." And I'm like, "Because I never asked." But I think in some ways my parents didn't want to talk about the war and the trauma, right? They want us to focus on school, do well, get a good job,
be a good
be
American.
be a good American, right? And then, that was when, my first political awakening was like, "What? Like, WTF?" This is the reason why I support ethnic studies in our public school. I think it's really important for young people to understand their history and their roots. And so yeah. And I love it that we're having this conversation about Asian American lived experience because it's so important. Because oftentimes, we occupy this space where folks don't talk about, us as a people in this country and our contributions and what we've gone through, in American history, and so
Yeah. And that's not to I tell people, I'm like, "This is not we're not gonna have the trauma Olympics," right? Like, I'm
yeah,
not saying,
yeah,
like, your trauma isn't as, like, what it's just
yeah,
but I do it's pretty, like, well established how silenced those legacies are. Like, for instance,
mhm,
with the Japanese, yes, usually people know about the internment. What is usually uplifted is like, and then there was the most decorated unit was the all Japanese unit in World War II, and let's talk about their accomplishments and whatever. It's all about like how they rise above. And I'm
mhm,
not upset that we talk about how they rise above, but the fact that it happened, the fact that up until this day, March 2nd, 2026, the actions of FDR in interning the Japanese has never been found illegal. through 2
Mhm.
Supreme Court cases as
Mhm.
lately as,
Mhm.
like, the 8th, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, there's it's that's worth talking about. It's worth talking about how, like, if we technically look at case law, it's okay to round up 100,000, Japanese Americans and throw them in can or 100,000 of anybody based
Mhm.
on race only to
And literally we're doing that because the Supreme Court ruled that you can pull someone based, you can take them based on their language, based on what they look like, based on where they work, right? And it's a repeat of history.
Yeah, I loved
Um,
how Kavanaugh, when he was talking about his Kavanaugh stops, he actually did try to separate Korematsu from it. Korematsu is the most
oh yeah,
famous
the
Supreme
yep.
Court case,
Mhm.
right, and he tried so hard to be like, "This isn't me saying Korematsu was right," and I was like,
Yeah,
"You
yeah,
sure?" Because it kind of sounds like you're saying that.
yeah,
Anyway, okay, tangent, sorry, really
yeah.
love talking about this.
We're good.
Okay, we're in the wild card phase, so you are in CD 6, and
87.
7, sorry,
Yeah.
California
It's
7.
okay, we're right next to each other, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. One of those. Alright, so you're in California 7. You're talking to your people. It sounds like you are definitely hitting the ground talking to your people. What are they telling you that they need from Mai if they put you in Congress? If they're like, "Mai, this is what we expect you to bring back to the district."
Man, there are so many issues, Kate,
Yeah, I
with
know.
everything from it's like access to affordable housing and making sure that our premiums don't go up in healthcare, right? But then what I've been hearing is like, how are you gonna fight? Like, that's what they wanna hear. Like, how are you gonna hold
Mhm.
the administration accountable? You know what I mean? Are you gonna file the articles of impeachment and his entire cabinet? How are you gonna hold ICE agents accountable, right? And so I think that is the magic wand is that we take back the House and then hopefully in 2028 the Senate and the presidency and then we have to hold these folks accountable. Like that's the piece, right? Yes, there's like the healthcare piece, the affordability, the housing, all of those things.
The
But
court rests.
we have an administration that is causing so much harm right now in this moment, and we need to hold them accountable. And that is going to be like not just my Vang, but like a new wave of electeds in this space pushing all of us, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, all parties, to say, hey, this administration has done so much effing harm that we have to hold them accountable, prosecute, jail them. We got to do that because that is where we're at right now in this moment. And when I become Congresswoman, I am going to join the cohort of electeds who are going to be fighting to make sure that happens. And obviously, healthcare, housing, affordability, but it's this administration that is causing so much harm to our families, and we have to hold them accountable.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think that it's people are trying to parse those issues out, accountability and affordability, and I'm like, "Both
both
and."
and then we have this administration that's causing all that harm. So it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like we're gonna have to hit the 120th Congress literally sprinting down the road. Like,
yeah,
it's gotta be like, y'all have pages of legislation that you are, like, at the speaker's desk going like, "Right now.
right now.
This right here. Right this minute. Let's go. Let's" like and
Mhm.
I mean, even if you have an unfriendly president or whatever, who cares? Just annoy the hell out of the man with, like, pages and pages of
Yeah,
legislation. It's
like,
like
do something, please.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing. My You now get your chance to tell the people what they can do for you on the campaign
Aw.
trail, whether they're in the district or not, because there's plenty of people can do outside. And this is where I say to people 2 things. One, if you want people who are not bought by corporate PACs, you have to be willing to support them somehow. Money, time, I don't care, pick one, but you don't get to be like whining about the establishment paid for by corporations, but then not actually supporting a candidate meaningfully. Second is, as I said earlier, this is homework time, and you do not have to be in the district to help a candidate. So if you are cozy in your district, let's say you're in one and you're like, my candidate's doing great. I've done what I need to do. They're all wonderful. Or I like my incumbent. I have no reason to be upset with them right now. They're doing their job. That's wonderful. You don't get a pass. You need to pick a different race and say, I will solve something over there. So, what would you like from the people who are listening now and will be listening later?
Yes, yes. So, yes, if you are listening now, it's all hands on deck. We have less than 92 days to go, and so we need your time, your treasure. There's one more T. There's 3 T. Time,
Time,
treasure, and
talent,
talent.
and treasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Time, talent, and treasure. So, if you live in the Sacramento, the CD7, Elk Grove, Lodi, Galt, please come out and canvas, door knock with us. We have about 6 days of canvassing. It is a strong field game, and that's how we're going to win this. Yes, and we also have to raise money, so you can volunteer. Go to myforus.com. You can go to our website to also donate as well. We don't take any corporate PAC money, and we need every dollar to get our message across the congressional district. So you can donate at myforus.com. And then, yeah, you can also volunteer in other ways. Canvassing, yes, but if you're a content creator in the Sacramento area, you want to like bring us on your podcast, or you want to talk about the campaign, happy to jump on as well. Time, treasure, and talent is what we need on the campaign. You can follow us on social media, go like us, share our page with other folks, and get the message out. Our handle is My For Us, so that's on all of our social media platforms. My For Us is our handle, and yeah, just tap in, join us, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited. Sacramento, Elk Grove, Lodi, El Dorado, Gulf. We're all ready for change, and this time to the voters, you have another choice on the ballot.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being such a dreamy dreamboat candidate.
Thank
Um,
you for being the dreamy content creator that we all need to help push us to make calls to our electeds. So, if there was a series called Political Content Creator, the Dream Political Content Creator, you would be on that list. Okay. So,
thank you.
yeah, and thank you for all that you do, like, organizing, and you're an advocate for the people. So,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Everyone, I will send out the recording of this. I will have links to all the things Maya just said. So if you're like, I forgot, or I don't remember, or whatever, no excuses, because I will send it out and you will be able to do all the things from there. But until next time, we're going to be talking to another candidate in just a few minutes. You can join me again at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, go out and support Mai if she is your dream candidate for Sacramento.
let's
Have
go.
everyone. Good night.
Good night.